Apparently, they've been doing these big raids, huge raids, and I am kind of surprised about it. But apparently, this has just been like really popular. Yeah, big raids.
We went to bodegas in Washington Heights, then came over here to the Bronx.
That's fucked up that they got Arizona tea at $3.50. Because y'all remember it used to say $1 right there on the package.
Heights, then came over here to the Bronx. Less money coming in, employees not showing up are some of the things that we heard. But for others, President Trump's immigration crackdown means bringing law and order.
So with President Trump's immigration crackdowns underway, certain areas of town are a lot quieter than they used to be. With local store owners revealing a notable decrease in the amount of customers they're seeing, while saying some of their employees are scared they could be spotted by ICE and deported if they come to work. However,
that sounds like a really good place to start for looking at those employees and who they're hiring. And why are you hiring people without properly vetting them? And, you're hiring illegals under the table. I feel like, let's figure out these places that are afraid of having their, like, oh, wow, our people won't come in because they're afraid of ICE. Why are they afraid of ICE? What is the reason for that? That's a great question. Probably paying them like shit? Yeah.
New York is not the only city in America where immigration activity is creating ghost towns, and it certainly might not be the last.
Promises made, promises kept, with President Trump taking immediate action on his top campaign focus, fighting illegal immigration. And as ICE closes in on migrants, once vibrant neighborhoods are now turning into...
In my opinion, I feel like they're not doing enough. Like, they got to scale this up 2 or 3 times. Like, they're only, like, deporting, like, 1,000 people a day. That's not enough people.
Ghost towns.
Suslin Pichardo, who manages a Bronx bodega, says fewer undocumented workers are showing up for their shifts and significantly less foot traffic. She calls it the 2020.
They got to start finding these companies that are willingly hiring people that are illegal. If you're knowingly hiring people that are illegal or you're not properly vetting them, like, where's the accountability there? Because, like, in a way, like, I don't even really blame the illegals. Like, the reason why I don't blame them is because, like, of course you want to come to America. You're going to get paid more money and it's better. Like, if I lived in some countries in South America are nice, some aren't, right? But let's say I live in one of the ones that's a shithole. I would want to come to America, absolutely. Fuck yeah. And so, but the reason why is because these companies will hire them. So these companies are really the ones that are creating the carrot. And so if you start holding these companies accountable, I feel like this would stop a lot faster.
Pandemic, but this time an immigration pandemic.
There's a lot of criminals. Now streets is more safe. You can see, you can walk now.
Yeah, they be afraid. They be calling me and asking, Frank, are they gonna come to the store?
A lot of fear, says this man from Ecuador. It's the kind of fear humanitarians are pushing back on, especially those who wish to protect the sanctuary sentiment.
But the reality is 65% of Americans strongly support deporting immigrants convicted of violent crimes.
Some bodega
no shit. Of course everybody supports it. That's the thing.
Owners are looking to hire employees, in this case documented employees, because they
only
need to
65%. I think actually that was just people that were in favor of mass deportations. Like that's what I at least read, but it could have been another thing. I don't know.
keep moving the economy.
Yeah. ICE raids are putting ghost
So
town.
immigration crackdowns are causing mainstream political panic, with some suggesting they'll lead to a smoothie shortage. But what nobody in the open borders crowd wants you to remember is that 4 years ago,
I love how like people think that it's a good idea to like, well, why don't we open the borders so we can get smoothies that are cheaper? Why don't we have open borders so we can have people that work for below the table wages so we can get cheap smoothies? Wow, that's a great argument. I love that.
The largest migration event in U.S. history, we had a reasonably well-functioning country, which was a lot safer. Because it wasn't a hiding place for gang members and dangerous individuals, the very people Homeland Security is now after, with mass raids taking place in sanctuary cities all across the country. But these raids are turning certain New York neighborhoods into ghost towns, with business owners and residents saying the streets feel much quieter. But that brings up some uncomfortable questions and possibilities, like where did people living in the country without the right to work
Where'd they go?
All of the money they were spending at these businesses? Were they earning money?
They were working there. And the businesses, in my opinion, I think in a lot of cases willingly and intentionally hired illegal immigrants because it gave them a leg up in negotiation strength. You can now pay them less than average wages. They don't have the same rights as American workers, and you can treat them like second-class citizens. And that's why they're hiring these people. I feel like it's common sense. Like, if you were a ruthless business owner, wouldn't that be what you would do? If you're trying to get by? Of course it is. So I would assume that's what they would do too.
In a manner connected to the criminal underground by committing crimes, shoplifting, reselling stolen goods, or worse. And those businesses, by complaining to the news that immigration raids have scared away their employees, they've just admitted to illegally hiring and employing people who can't legally work and may be in the country without permission. Which brings us to the real reason why certain parts of New York are turning into ghost towns by allowing over 400,000 people to live in this city without permission to be in the U.S. An entire economic system has been created which is illegal and exploits everyone who's part of it. In fact, I spoke to one restaurant worker who said their boss was hiring newly arrived asylum seekers off the books for far below minimum wage so they could save.
There it is. Oh, what a surprise. What a shock. Who could have guessed? Wow.
Hiring newly arrived asylum seekers off the books for far below minimum wage so they could save money. On top of that, if you walk down the streets of our working class neighborhoods, you'll see unlicensed street vendors all over the place, some of whom sell products that still have the price tags on them from the stores they were stolen from, which get handed.
This is in New York City? How do you let this happen? What the fuck is the government doing over there? How do people let this go? The shamelessness. This is embarrassing.
Handed to them in suitcases by a group of men, making you wonder if some of the people spreading out items on blankets are there by choice or not. But as you're about to see, even though immigration raids are putting an end to an illegal system of exploitation, predatory businesses and immigration advocates are very upset about it.
I bet
for
they
some
are.
reason.
This is the kind of empathy that I was talking about that's like so harmful. It's like these are people that are advocating for like letting these people stay in here in like this exploitative relationship where they're stealing things from the stores and then reselling them on the street. Like these people basically think that it's more noble to turn the country into a third world country than to uphold our own laws. It's insane. Yeah, facts. Yeah, I feel like it's suicidal empathy. Well, the funny thing about it is that for a lot of these people, they never have to live with the consequences of their own empathy. So it's like they vote for these problems, but they don't even live in these places. So they're saying, oh yeah, no, you guys can deal with it. It's totally fine because we can vote for this and feel good about ourselves. So again, it's about them being able to feel like they made the right decision and they're doing the good thing. They're on the right side of history, guys. And that's what matters to them. Embarrassing.
So here we have your local bodegas, convenience stores, coffee shops, and restaurants. And in some parts of New York, businesses like these now complain that they've got staffing problems and customer problems at the exact same time.
I think that they should complain to ICE. And that way we can get a list. We get a list of everybody. So who all is complaining? Okay, let's go ahead and look over these books. Why are you complaining about this guy? Damn, what is the reason for that? What could it possibly be? Zach, empathy is bad? The problem with empathy is that a lot of times the people that perceive and that they say that they have empathy, they don't have empathy. They want to be seen as having empathy. And so what they do is they're trying to do what sounds like the right thing. There's not really a principle guiding like their behavior. There's more or less an approval guiding their behavior. So these are people who are looking for approval. They're looking to have the right opinions to the right people, and they work backwards from that. It's not like this is a principled stance that these people have in a lot of cases. They're just simply trying to have the right opinion to the right people. And that's why it makes it, that's what makes this empathy bad, is that it's actually not empathy. It's narcissism parading and masquerading as empathy. That's the difference.
time. And they say it's because of a prevailing sense of fear in immigrant communities over recent Homeland Security activity. But if what these businesses say is true, and both the customers and employees at some of these places aren't supposed to be here, who exactly is benefiting from a system that is in violation of federal immigration law?
Well, the companies are benefiting. Those are the people who are fundamentally benefiting. And like the citizens, like it depends on how you look at it. Some of them benefit, some of them don't. But I think that the one group that you can guarantee is benefiting is the business owner and the capital owner, and the elite class is benefiting from having an underclass of people that they can control with less workers' rights. That is the one group that in absolute fucking certainty is catching a W from this.
Niggas in Washington Heights then came over here to the Bronx. Less money coming in, employees not showing up are some of the things that we heard. But for Johan Mencias, ICE raids are already making a positive impact in our neighborhoods.
I know there's a lot of good people too, and I feel bad for them, but it's got to be done. We got to clean up. I got 2 daughters. One of my daughters.
Wow, so as it turns out, the residents of this neighborhood do not benefit from businesses who break the law and hire people who aren't supposed to be in the country. And they're saying
that's because the people that are benefiting and the people that are pushing for this kind of stuff are liberals that live in completely separate areas that don't have to deal with any of the fallout from this. That's the reason why. So, like, the people that are living there don't like it. It's the people that aren't living there. They have no connection to it, but they think that they have, like, some sort of cultural solidarity with some, like, random immigrant that came and is committing crime here. And it's actually, it's really kind of crazy, the psyop that, like, I think that the, like, elite business ruling class has played on a lot of the, like, liberals, that they've convinced the liberals that having a second-rate, second-class slave class or laborer class is actually the moral and ethical thing to do. Like, it's really kind of an impressive degree of manipulation.
their neighborhoods now feel a lot safer because of these recent immigration crackdowns. But even though residents seem to be happy now, local businesses that were hiring these folks are not. But the crazy thing about that is by hiring people who don't have a right to work and paying them less than fair wages, those workers are being exploited, and so is
there's a lot more that goes into it than less than fair wages. There's like workers' compensation. There's any sort of accountability if the workplace treats them badly. There are tons of other, like, if you take income out of the equation, there are tons of other, like, line items and levels of accountability that businesses have that are created by the government in the best interest of workers that these people get to completely ignore.
Local neighborhood, which now has less jobs available for its residents. And how do we know that these businesses hiring people with no legal right to be in the country aren't holding that status over them or using it to coerce them to come into work in the first place, possibly as leverage to get them to work in unsafe, unsanitary conditions or do things they wouldn't otherwise? But there's
yeah, it's like come to work, or we call ICE on you. I mean, absolutely. Yeah, if you take out the emotional manipulation, the emotional blackmail, and the suicidal empathy out of this argument, and you just look at it logically, there's no perspective that you can have on this that it's not completely retarded.
Problem because in New York you've got over 400,000 people who don't have a legal right to remain in America, yet because this is a sanctuary city they're allowed to do that, but they've got to get by somehow. They've got to work, they've got to buy food, clothing, provide for themselves, and they can only do this if groups are willing to help them break the law, and some of those groups are gangs. And one of these gangs, this Tren de Aragua from Venezuela, they've had a bunch of high-profile members taken down recently. But this is a gang that made its way to New York during the asylum crisis, where it's been growing its criminal reach by exploiting people who may have entered the country but can't live or work here in a legal manner, and now find themselves needing the help of criminals to get things like fake IDs or fake working papers, which they could be using to trick.
And then this is, it creates more of an ecosystem of crime. And then this ecosystem of crime becomes more oppressive and more powerful and more, what do you call it? More toxic to a community as it grows, because it becomes more powerful.
legitimate businesses into hiring them, revealing that even if companies don't knowingly hire people who aren't supposed to be here, they could still be forced to shut down if they do, which apparently might happen to some small businesses in certain parts of New York.
Good.
There's a lot of criminals. Now the streets is more safe. You can see, you can walk.
Suslin Pichardo, who manages a Bronx bodega, says fewer undocumented workers are showing up for their shifts. And significant.
How is ICE not immediately going to this person and holding them criminally responsible for fucking hiring illegals knowing that they're illegals? They're busy? That's phase 2? I just like, and I really want to emphasize this point a lot, is that I blame the companies and the business owners 100 times more than I blame the illegal immigrants. Like the illegal immigrants, I get it, right? I get it. But these companies, they are the fucking roaches. They are the real ones that are benefiting from this.
Significantly less foot traffic. She calls it the 2025 pandemic.
They're taking advantage of people? Yeah, they are.
An immigration pandemic.
So the manager of this one bodega in the Bronx says that this crackdown has turned New York City into what it was in 2020 when the streets were completely empty and desolate.
Jesus.
That's quite a statement. But it also reveals that most of the business at her store was due to illegal activity, both on the part of the employees and the customers. And it also means that her store might not be able to stay open if that illegal activity disappears. Now look, I'm a business owner.
I love how this argument is. Well, my business can't survive unless we have illegal activity, so we just have to ignore the law so my business can survive. What?
Myself, and a store shutting down is never something anybody should be excited about. But if you've got a business and all of the people working there,
I would disagree. I would disagree with that. I think that if your business can exist inside of the legal framework of like respecting workers and not breaking the law, then I absolutely would celebrate you getting shut down. Because when you can't operate inside of that legal framework, it's because you're taking advantage of people and you are doing things that are unethical and in some cases, at least what even I would argue, are immoral. Like that's a W, because this is effectively an oppressive and subversive mechanism in society that has now been removed.
Supposed to be in the country, and neither are the customers. Who exactly is benefiting from that business other than the owners?
Yeah.
And how are all of these customers who don't have legal work authorization able to afford the things in the store? They had to have been getting their money from somewhere, and these places are tiny. They can't employ 400,000 people, which means some of the business these stores were getting is related to criminal activity in other parts of the city. And there's no way around that. If somebody does not have legal work permission, the only way to get a job is to do it in an illegal way. And in some cases, that involves more than just working off the books. It involves shoplifting, which is a big problem in New York because retail theft has been decriminalized, and there are markets all over town where people were just...
How do you do this? Retail theft is decriminalized. Not to completely disagree with you, but in New York, you have to operate like this to have a small profit margin. I'm not saying that is, but that might be. I think that if your business can't operate while following the law, then your business shouldn't exist. It's just that simple. Like that's obviously, right? I mean, like if you can't make an honest buck, then your business fails. That's the way it goes. That's the free market.
Reselling stuff on the sides of the street. On top of that, you've got restaurants full of health code violations renting themselves out to people to just use. And apparently you've got people making food and selling it all over town, totally under the radar of the health department. And the restaurant in question here
How is this like this? That's like India. Like, how could anybody support this at all? It's unbelievable that people can support this.
Not have a satisfactory inspection grade like this place does. In fact, soon after this article came out, it ended up getting shut down, which means people eating that food could have gotten sick. And if people are buying food prepared in an unsafe, unlicensed restaurant, that just hurts legitimate businesses like this.
This is what I was saying, dude. This is narcissism disguised as empathy. These people are not empathetic at all. And I think that actually some of them maybe are, but they're so stupid they can't understand like the second and third order effects of what their actions are causing,
while making the streets of these neighborhoods much less safe.
We are victims of
those criminals.
Fernando Mateo says President Trump is making bodegas safer by doing what the criminal
You're
justice...
generalizing most people don't support this? Enough people support this that it's the status quo in the state. So you're right that a lot of people don't support it, but enough people support it that it continues to happen.
System has failed to do.
Now, if you've committed a crime, I recommend, other than enter the country illegally, that you look for another place to work. Because
Imagine
if they
that.
come looking for you.
So this guy right here, he's the president of the United Bodega Workers of America, and every time something happens in New York that's controversial involving a bodega, he's there to stick up for these people every time they get robbed, every time they get raided, every time criminals enter their stores and assault workers. And he says the stores he represents are victims of crime committed by people who aren't supposed to be here. And that's
obviously
the problem that sanctuary cities have. They're okay with criminal activity as long as it's federal, but they don't seem to understand that by allowing one type of crime, they expose themselves to other types as well. And residents of the Bronx
because if you can't be a citizen, you have to resort to doing other things that are illegal too. That's the problem. And it's like a parallel to this that's like not exact, but it's similar. So like whenever you're like a convicted felon and you get out of jail, you have such a massive like red flag on your resume that it's so hard for you to get a job that you end up probably committing more crimes again, because now you're at this massive disadvantage and you end up doing it the same way, or housing or finding a place to live. So these people, because they're not able to go through the normal channels, what ends up happening is that they turn to other additional criminal means. And really, I mean, again, they're trying to survive. It's easy to understand why they would do this.
Washington Heights can attest to this. They're out there saying that their streets were dangerous, all because illegal activity allowed and empowered a criminal element to dig in its heels and take over. And empowering criminals hurts the law-abiding in ways that are less obvious but are very real for the people affected by them. And if jobs are being given away to people so businesses can break the law and save money, that's something we need to talk about, because it means that these businesses are taking job opportunities away from people who have to obtain them in a by-the-books manner.
Yeah, and this is not like, I mean, people make the argument where it's like, oh, these people are like picking strawberries and so nobody wants to pick strawberries. Okay, sure, you can say that, but these are people that are working at like a gas station. Like, you really can't find an American citizen that'll work at a gas station? I mean, give me a fucking break.
Bodega owners are looking to hire employees, in this case documented employees, because they need to keep
Absolutely, it's bullshit.
In the Bronx, I'm Eliezer Marte.
So look at that. These businesses, now that their employees won't come to work, they've decided that they're going to obey the law and hire people who are on the books, which is going to be good news for people who need their first job and can't get it. And while the immigration activist crowd is out there protesting these raids as being cruel and unnecessary, these very same activists never protested businesses who exploited their workers at the expense of the law-abiding, who they...
That's what I really find to be odd, is that all of these people advocate for these undocumented workers, but they don't advocate for holding the businesses accountable for treating them and exploiting them badly.
Wouldn't hire. However, the open borders crowd is very upset about this, and they've got no intention of staying quiet about it, even though it benefits the very people trying to make it...
If it's the business owner's fault, why are you facilitating dehumanizing immigrants? You're totally wrong. I'm wrong about dehumanizing them? Well, of course they're people. I mean, yeah, I don't really see, like, when somebody commits a crime and they do something that they're not supposed to do, is holding them accountable for that dehumanizing them? Like, I don't understand the logic there. I mean, these are criminals. They're not supposed to be here. They're, in often cases, committing additional crimes in order to exist here without being detected. And they're working at these jobs that they shouldn't be at in the beginning. Like, how do you, in any logical perspective, come out on their side? Dehumanizing, yeah, like it's emotional language. It's emotional language, and I'm sure it works with some people, but I don't think that average people give a shit about that anymore.
In America, immigrants who they claim they're advocating for.
We don't? Yeah, it's so annoying.
So as a sanctuary city, New York is in a very strange place. Yes, these ICE raids are getting dangerous individuals, criminals, gang members off our streets. But you've got an entire group of people here who are very proud of New York's sanctuary city status, probably because they don't understand how much harm it's doing. But nonetheless, these are
because they never have to live with the effects of it. That's the reason why. It's not because they don't understand it. It's because they don't have to.
Who are very upset that any of this activity here is taking place, and they want it to stop.
Deportations undermine city families, they undermine city communities, and they undermine public safety. And so what our laws say is that the city is going to divorce itself from what it sees as misguided federal immigration enforcement efforts.
So this sounds like a good place to start if you're going to look like people that aren't going to cooperate with the federal government. I mean, like, that's just not the way it works. Yeah, it's nuts. Undermine the American people? Yeah.
Professor on the news describing this viewpoint of sanctuary city protections. Maybe he holds it himself, maybe he doesn't, but the fact of the matter is, it's the working class neighborhoods that are experiencing most of the crime related to all of what we're talking about today. And none of the gang activity plaguing the Bronx or Washington Heights is present in places like Cobble Hill or the West Village. And these raids and crackdowns are something that people who live in these neighborhoods are very happy about. And
I love how it's racist to deport illegals, as if everybody who's brown is an illegal, or everybody who's Latino or Hispanic is illegal. Like, how can you say that and not be obviously fucking racist?
While activists are out there talking about how terrible these raids are, none of the people who live in these neighborhoods are listening to them. And some of the people taken down in these raids are extremely dangerous. They've been caught trying to buy military-grade assault weapons.
Wow.
And this gang activity is certainly not a mystery to New York's leaders. They know that a lot of gang-related activity is taking place in shelters like the Randall's Island facility that is in the process of being shut down. You'll find wanted posters outside, and the city knows there are gang members living in these places, taking them over, co-opting them. But because this is a sanctuary city with a right to shelter, the city has plans right now to open a new 2,200 person shelter in the Bronx, while all of this immigration-related activity is taking place in that very same neighborhood.
Any of these immigrants that we speak about tonight have been properly screened.
Tough questions for Mayor Eric Adams' staff here at this contentious Bronx Community Board 1 meeting. I'm living this. I'm seeing this. Things got worse when the mayor's chief of staff revealed the decision to open a 2,200 bed.
So I can answer the first question. It's a no.
2,200 people?
Nobody gets screened at all. The city's not doing background checks before it moves people into its shelters. That's how you've got gang members living down the hall in some cases from families with little kids. And since we're a sanctuary city with a right to shelter, that automatically means that nobody can be denied that right regardless of past or current criminal activity. That's how these dangerous gangs were able to make their way into these shelters in the first place. Nobody checked to see if they were...
I think the federal government needs to come in and, like, these people that aren't cooperating with them, like, need to just, like, fucking arrest them or something. Straight up. Like, I mean, you can't just, like, actively defy and, like, not enforce federal law. It's insane. Like, hold up, what? Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, what is this? That's wild? No, it's not. Absolutely, that's not crazy at all. These are people who, their responsibility is to uphold the law. They're part of the United States. This is the United States of America. It's a federal law. You don't just get to ignore the law if you disagree with it. Yeah, we already fought an entire war over this once. I mean, we don't need to do it again. Just get rid of these people.
Thugs. And after this place opens, because this is a sanctuary city, the police will not be allowed inside it to keep it safe and make sure there aren't gang members operating openly with weapons. But by advocating
I do think that there's a greater problem at play here, which is that there is a huge contingency of people who agree with this thinking. And that's really what the problem is. And I think that you need to have, like, the way to stop those people from thinking that is to really emphasize the amount of bad behavior and the amount of bad things that allowing these people into the country facilitates. And I think that's really where the weakness is. It's because that hasn't been focused on, and it's instead been a lot of emotional advocacy and emotional blackmail towards justifying them being here. Bleeding heart lefties? Well, yeah, but like, see, the best way to combat emotional manipulation is with emotional manipulation. Because you can't reason a person out of a position they didn't reason themselves into. So the best way that you need to approach people that are like this is to like approach directly the people that are hurt from this. Approach it from an emotional perspective. Approach it from a manipulative perspective. That's what's actually going to cause those people to change their mind.
Halt to any immigration crackdowns in New York, these advocates fail to realize that they're advocating against...
Federal law supersedes municipal law. Municipal government doesn't have to enforce federal law. It's the only thing that they can't do is enforce laws that contradict federal laws. Oh, well, I mean, well, sure, right? I mean, if I don't want to see people sent to jail if they're not actually committing a crime, but like if they're actually defying or trying to like subvert or stop the federal government, then that's totally different, right? But the difference here to me is that I think the big problem is that people believe this enough to push it. It's kind of what I was saying before about like JD Vance is that, yes, well, I think that the people that are like actively aiding and abetting this should be criminally prosecuted. Of course, this is true. But the other thing that's true is that it's the marketplace of ideas and the fact that this idea is so prevalent. Why is this idea so prevalent? And I think the reason why it's so prevalent is because people have refused to play the game that these people listen to, which is emotion. And if you play that game, you can beat them at that game, because I think that there is no moral high ground to allowing these people to live here. Absolutely not.
Protecting people who do have a valid reason to be here. Some of the asylum seekers in these shelters do have valid claims, but by allowing gang members and criminals to live next to them, everyone's in danger. Yeah. And now things are so bad, criminal activity is spilling out of these shelters into our neighborhoods, with gang members committing crime all over town and exploiting people.
They're not supposed to be here? No, you're missing my point. You're right that they're not supposed to be here. But that's not a good argument to get certain people on your side. What I'm saying is that you have to approach it from multiple perspectives. And one of the perspectives that you should approach it from is, how can I get these people to agree with me? How can I get these people to do what I want them to do? And so sometimes you have to speak a person's language, and they might not think the same way that you do. Now, of course, you're right, and I think that the way that you're thinking should always supersede what they're thinking because it's logical and not emotional. But that doesn't stop the underlying problem that a lot of people believe this. And that's my point.
Shelters into our neighborhoods, with gang members committing crime all over town and exploiting people. On top of that, New York does not have unlimited shelter space, which means that some of these facilities are housing gang members while people who could be legitimate asylum seekers are out sleeping in tents on the street somewhere.
A lot of fear, says this man from Ecuador. It's the kind of fear humanitarians are pushing back on, especially those who wish to protect the sanctuary sentiment.
We've been dealing with hysteria of mass deportation, of people feeling that any local law enforcement...
So this guy from Ecuador who partially showed his face on the news, is he here legally? Because if he is, he's got nothing to worry about. But if he thinks he's not here legally, he probably isn't, and he could be at risk for getting deported. But even though we've got advocates that are scaring people with this thought of mass deportations, when Trump took office, ICE only had around 6,000 agents who could even act in a deportation capacity. The resources simply are not there to deport millions of people from America. And even though ICE is now allowed to enter sensitive areas like schools, hospitals, churches, that's not what's happening. Federal agents are not camped up outside of an elementary school. Instead, the reason ghost towns are popping up in this city is because of targeted removals of people who are dangerous and also have orders of removal from this country and are here profiting at the expense of the law-abiding. What do you think about that? Are these raids in New York City having a positive effect on neighborhoods that were previously taken over by criminals? Are people in the country unlawfully forced to subject...
People can't break out of the PSYOP? I actually think that it's incredibly easy to manipulate people. It's incredibly easy. All you have to do is know what their levers are. As soon as you know how you can, like, there are different ways to appeal to different people. And once you understand how to appeal to a certain group of people, then you can apply that in mass. But the same strategies can't be used for the same people. It's easy to emotionally manipulate. Exactly. Yes. Yeah, it is. And so do you just do that instead?
Themselves to the criminal underworld in some fashion to get by? And does that empower and embolden people who put all of us in danger? Let me know. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.
I like this guy's videos a lot. And I really do feel like
we went to
it is crazy how many people think that it's anything more than a complete manipulation play. Strike an emotional chord. They have nothing but putty. A third. Yeah, exactly. Right. And they just arrested a Salvadoran hitman. Did you see? No, I didn't see that. I'll look at it in a minute. I think facts don't care about feelings, but feelings must be targeted. Yeah, they will be. And I think that facts generally win out over feelings all the time. But in the same way that facts may win out over feelings, there's also the component of feelings still being important. Because I think that it's better for you to, if you can, it's better for you to win the hearts and the minds of the people as well. Like, it's great to have a victory, but it's even better to have a moral victory. So if you can do that, and I do think that this is a situation that you can have a moral victory over. So it's better to focus on that than focus on just the books and only that. So yeah.